My name's Javier Becerra. I'm the chairman of the Democratic Caucus. We have held another caucus meeting this Saturday evening, September the 28th, T-minus essentially 2 days in counting, where it appears that Republicans have decided to move forward with their plan to shut down the government. And so here we are. It looks like it's a case of a very deep and intense family feud within the Republican Party here in the House of Representatives, where the tail is wagging the elephant, and the folks who are going to get hurt are the American people and certainly the middle class. If basic government services are shut down because of a political feud. But that seems to be where we're going. It seems that there are some people who are intent on putting party before country and letting our budget for the federal government not move forward so we can keep the doors of all those government services open, whether it's for seniors or for our veterans or for young families who use the services through Head Start and other programs to make sure they can go to work. It seems like we're moving in the direction, the Republican direction of shutting down government. I think it was Albert Einstein who said it best. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is probably the best way to define insanity. And on the evening of September 28th, I think we find ourselves with a very clear definition of insanity. I don't see how we could continue to keep our middle class growing, how we can continue to believe it will remain strong, how we can continue to tell those in the middle class that they can provide their kids with the promise of a better future if we continue to create these manufactured crises which close the doors of government, perhaps even in the next week or two jeopardize the full faith and credit of the United States. It seems odd. But I want to make it sort of crystallize what's going on here. Republicans are complaining that our president has not negotiated with them on this legislation, which is supposed to be a budget bill, but Republicans have turned it into a bill where they can attach all sorts of things or aspects of their Republican agenda, their conservative agenda, especially the repeal of the health security law that's now in place. The Republicans are prepared to shut down government, and we are on the floor tonight to vote for the 45th time to repeal in whole or in part the health security law that on October 1st will extend access to quality health insurance to millions of Americans. And perhaps the oddest aspect of this is they continue to complain that they are not getting enough attention from the president to negotiate on this Republican bill, is that never once did our Republican colleagues here in the House approach Democrats on what to do in this bill, what to include in this bill that's going to be on the floor in a matter of hours for us to debate. And so while they talk about compromise and negotiation, they ignore 200 representatives in the House of Representatives who represent tens of millions of people in this country. And so I think Albert Einstein is right. When you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results, and we've seen the Republicans threaten the shutdown of the government several times, we've seen them walk away from opportunity to negotiate with the president and Democrats. They keep doing it over and over again, and I think Albert Einstein is right. That is the definition of insanity, and that's why on a Saturday evening at about 8 o'clock at night on September the 28th, less than 3 days from watching Republicans shut down the government, we're voting on another bill that will lead us in that direction. With that, I will yield to our Vice Chairman, Mr. Joe Crowley, and we're lucky to be joined by one of our colleagues from New Jersey, who is the co-chairman of the Steering and Policy Committee for the House Democrats, Rob Andrews, after our Vice Chairman speaks. Joe.
Thank you, Javier. Joe Crowley of New York. Is it 45? 40, 46? Is it 45? Or I've lost count. But I think most Americans have lost count as well. And quite frankly, I don't think they care anymore how many times you attempt to repeal the health security bill known as the Affordable Care Act that we have in place. What they do know is that failure to pass a CR will bring about a shutdown in government. That's what the American people understand tonight. What frustrates them and what frustrates us is that the Republicans continue to use the issue of health security and their hatred for the Affordable Care Act and their intention to repeal it. They're using that issue to shut down government. That is their main objective. That is their big hostage, and they're not letting go. And who suffers as a result of that? The American people. It continues to show over and over again, unfortunately, that the dysfunctionality that is in Washington is not in the Congress, but it is within the Republican caucus itself. I can't say anymore, I feel bad for John Boehner. I feel sorry. He's a decent man. It's not the point. The reality is their caucus is dysfunctional, and they cannot function, and the government cannot function because of their dysfunctionality. We like to say they need to get their act together. They need to put a bill on the floor, a clean bill to continue government, a CR to continue government. That's it. And the reality is the votes that we're going to take, no matter how many gimmicks we put into the bill, how many amendments and how many gimmicks there are in the bill, a vote on this bill tonight in favor is a vote to shut down government. That's what it is. Because they know once it gets to the Senate, it will not be taken up. It has been rejected over and over and over again. Because we're not going backwards, we're going forward. We're not repealing the Affordable Care Act, we're going forward and implementing it, their greatest fear. So our message is to the Republican caucus, get your acts together, get a CR on the floor that is clean so that we can move on with governing. And with that, we'll turn the microphone over to Rob Andrews of New Jersey.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Javier. It is virtually certain that on Tuesday morning, the United States government will not open, will be shut down. It is absolutely certain that American taxpayers will keep paying for the government on Tuesday morning. The House Republicans are about to shut down the government, but doesn't shut down the obligation of the Americans to pay taxes for services they're no longer receiving. How do we get to this point? Their presidential nominee in 2008, Senator McCain, said it was insanity to shut the government down over the health care law. Their presidential nomination of last year, Governor Romney, said it was wholly ineffective to shut the government down over the health care law. 2/3 of the Republicans in the United States Senate refused to use their votes to shut the government down over the health care law. But an avid minority within the House majority is running the show. Some have suggested that Senator Cruz is now the de facto Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, the question is not if we are eventually going to adopt a clean continuing resolution. The question is when. It is absolutely clear that a continuing resolution that injures or repeals the health care bill will never pass the United States Senate and would never receive the president's signature if it did. The votes that our Republican friends are about to cast tonight are votes in favor of a government shutdown. But it's more than just a government shutdown. It's a shutdown of the United States economy because it affects federal employees who won't be earning a paycheck, federal contractors who will find their contracts impaired, and many, many others who depend on that throughout the country's economy. We've had more than 3 years of consecutive months of job growth in this country. And they're putting that at risk. There's no good reason for it. We should end this charade, get a clean CR on the House floor, pass it, keep the United States government from shutting down. Very sadly, it appears to me all but certain when the clock strikes midnight on Monday, the government will shut down. This is an intentional act by the House Republicans. It's an act of extreme malfeasance.
We'll take questions.
Do you see
Ginger, go ahead.
the military pay bill, the accompaniment to this, as House Republicans saying trying to shut it down, why a contingency?
Well, that's right. Why else would you be passing a bill that says, by the way, in the event that government shuts down, we don't want all our service members to be impacted, so we're going to pass this bill along with our shutdown government bill. I think they're showing their hand, and it's unfortunate because it's not just our military personnel who will be hurt by a government shutdown. Certainly they will be hurt and their families as well. But there are a lot of other Americans who are going to be impacted by a government shutdown. And it's unfortunate that Republicans are trying to cover their bases with a constituency that we all always care about, our men and women in uniform and their families. But that's the insanity of this, and I think that's the shameful part of it, is that Republicans are essentially telegraphing that they intend to shut government, and the only folks they're going to worry about with the government shutdown are our military personnel. Pretty sad. Let me see if anybody...
I'll just add to that. What's even scarier about this is that we went through the same routine on the debt ceiling when the Republicans passed the Pay China First Act. They called it their Debt Prioritization Act. In the event of not raising the debt ceiling, these are the people who would be paid, or these are the entities that would be paid first, including China. And it's the same different play, but similar actors. If we do shut down government, well, we're going to give you some of the hostages. You can almost see it right now. If you remember Dog Day Afternoon, when they let some of the hostages go and they run across the streets into the arms of the police officers, they're let go, but you're still left with the rest of the hostages. And you know, that's unfortunate. But it's the way in which they're operating right now. It's all part of that same play, that same movie.
Rob, did you want to add?
Yeah, we certainly support paying the troops, and we stand by them and their families. But we support all Americans being treated justly. That's right. And this government shutdown is absolutely unjust. They're tipping their hand. They know it's coming, and this is a fig leaf to try to cover up some of its effects.
Yes. Which then raises the question of whether the Democratic caucus will support this military-only CR idea.
We want to pass a budget bill. We've said that from the very beginning. Put a budget bill on the floor, and Democrats will vote for it. One way or the other. I mean, some Democrats may say no based on what it says, and some may say yes, but we'll vote on that. But when you start to play games with the American people through the federal government budget, and again, a budget that operates as a result of the American people's taxpayer dollars, you're playing with fire. They've made it very clear. They understand they're playing with fire. That's why they're doing this military bill, so that it's not clear, it's not as obvious when all those military families are impacted by a government shutdown. They want to at least avoid that. As Mr. Andrews just said, we're not interested in picking winners and losers among all Americans who are paying their taxes when it's unnecessary, because it's a manufactured crisis by our Republican colleagues who are just engaged in a family feud, and they can't resolve it. They're letting their Tea Party members govern in a way that impacts all Americans. So I think that's extremely sad. Deirdre?
Some of your members have supported repealing the medical device tax. Are you concerned about defections on the two Obamacare-related amendments?
I think we've made it very clear. We're not interested in participating in the shutdown of our government and the basic services that would close as a result. And so we're going to look for a bill that lets us vote on a budget. And if the Republicans insist on putting things that have nothing to do with putting in place a budget that's paid for with taxpayer dollars, then we're not interested in playing that game. As the vice chairman said, this game of hostage taking, we're not interested in. And so we want to just do what we were voted and elected to do, and that is to help run the government with taxpayers' dollars in the most responsible way we can. This is irresponsible, to say the least, and we hope that what we can do is move forward quickly to get this work done, because there are so many other things we have to do. The middle class is waiting to hear what plan we have to help stimulate more jobs and get the economy growing even faster. The middle class is waiting to hear what we're doing to tackle the high cost of higher education. There's just so much we need to do.
Let me just be clear. we're also the folks with the megaphone. We're the cops out in the street. We're not the folks in the bank with the guns holding hostages. That's what they're doing right now. And really going back to your point about the bill itself, it's a separate bill from the CR. So it will not have no impact in terms of preventing a shutdown if the bill is passed or not in the House of Representatives. So they can try all the gimmicks they want. At the end of the day, what this is about is shutting down the government. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish we had more time. But we're heading very close now to the 11th hour. And as Mr. Andrews has said, his belief, and I think many of us believe, that if they don't act responsibly, the government will indeed shut down.
Yes.
It sounds like you feel that a shutdown is inevitable at this point. Do you envision any scenario where there's a last-minute reprieve here?
The only inevitability is that the American people will suffer the consequences of a very dangerous political game through a manufactured, a man-made crisis. Could we avoid this situation where Americans will suffer the consequence of their government shutting down for political reasons? Absolutely.
Good.
You could bring up the Senate passed bill as it was, stripped of all or most of the game playing that Republicans included the first time when they passed it earlier. We could have taken care of this yesterday. We could have taken care of this months ago. If the Republicans, our colleagues on the Republican side, wish to really negotiate on any number of these items, as the president has said, and we have all said as Democrats, we're prepared to sit down and negotiate, but not with a gun to the head of the American people saying we're going to shut down government unless you give us what we want. So absolutely this could be resolved. You don't need to do this, but that's up to Republicans.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize a couple things I think would be universally acknowledged in candor here. It is going to be nearly midnight Saturday when this process tonight is finished. As I understand the Senate rules, and they're rather abstruse, but as I understand them, Senator Reid can move quite quickly to strike the provisions the House is adding to this bill. And when the Senate reassembles, he will. And it's my anticipation that the Senate, because it has made clear where it stands, will stand there again and send the clean CR back. So this is really just a trailer for the movie you're going to see again in a certain number of hours. But I don't think it's very likely that all happens before midnight on Monday, just the way things work around here. We all know the end of this story. The president's going to sign a clean CR. We don't know we know that it's going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to happen. The sad part, as Mr. Crowley has said, as Chairman Becerra has said, is a lot of innocent people are going to be hurt in the process. A lot of people who are not part of this political dogfight are going to be dragged into it. What we're saying is, let's cut the drama. Put the Senate bill on the House floor tonight without the amendments. Let the majority work its will. And I'm confident if that happened, there'd be no government shutdown. But I think in candor, and if you ask their leadership, they'd really tell you the same thing. When the clock strikes midnight on Monday, the place is shutting down.
Any final questions? Can I just close with this remark? I quoted Einstein, or at least I believe it was Einstein.
He's from New Jersey, by the way.
Who, that's right. He accomplished some great things and talked about the definition of insanity. Let me give you the quote of another individual, a conservative commentator, P.J. O'Rourke. P.J. O'Rourke said, not that long ago, Republicans run for office claiming that government doesn't work. Then they get elected and prove it. This is one of those moments where it's hard to believe. If it weren't so serious, it'd be absurd. But that's where we are. And we are ready to vote to pass a budget, as we've been ready, and we hope our Republican colleagues will stop their internal political feuding and give the American people a chance to see their representatives vote for a clean bill to continue to move forward our government and not shut it down. Thank you all very much.